Breaking news, Pete Alonso has agreed to a 2-year deal with an opt-out after the first year with the New York Mets. The deal is $30 million in the first year, player option for the second year. Apparently the Mets had offered him a 3-year option, a 3-year contract anyway as a possibility, ultimately choosing the 2-year deal. That and more ahead next here at The Upside. And welcome into the MLB Hot Stove Daily here at the Upside Sports Network. My name is Michael. Appreciate you taking the time out on a busy Wednesday evening in baseball and in basketball tonight. A lot of trade news tonight. We get the Jimmy Butler 5-team deal in basketball, and then we get Pete Alonso finally agreeing to a deal with, no surprise, the New York Mets. Now, the Mets, we knew were going to up their offer at some point this week, and it does sound like we were going to get a 3-year deal in around that 75, 80, 82, $83 million range. Look at this deal itself. It's 2 years, $54 million. That third year probably would have been around that $30 million mark, between that $24 and $30 million mark. That puts that deal right at around $80 million. Who called the contract? This guy right here. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe for all your most accurate sports news that you're going to get, especially from Major League Baseball, all throughout the season. So the contract ultimately comes in 2 years, player option after the first year, $30 million, $10 million signing bonus, and a player option for $24 million next year. Now, according to several reports, Pete Alonso had different offers throughout the entire season and the year before of over $100 million. Obviously, Pete Alonso's missing those contract offers this offseason. Those offers just never materialized in the way he was hoping. But a good deal nonetheless. I think Pete Alonso, if he has a good year this year, very likely could opt out next year and join Vladimir Guerrero as some of the best first basemen on the market, especially if he reestablishes himself defensively. Now, do I expect him to do better defensively? Probably not. But if he has a much better offensive year going into next year, this upcoming season going into his free agency, I think he could have a great contract waiting for him. Now, first base DH guys don't exactly get paid. That's kind of what the last deals have really been for Freddie Freeman and for Matt Olson, some of the last big deals we've seen for first basemen. So we knew the contract for Pete Alonso had the chance to get up to that, but when so many teams made their decision at first base so quickly, the market for Alonso dried up. I mean, even a team like the Washington Nationals made a decision and made a trade for Nathaniel Lowe. They weren't even looking for a first baseman this year. They were looking for a short-term guy that maybe they could go in for agency next year and add a guy. You get Josh Naylor getting traded in this market to a team that lost their first baseman, Christian Walker. He goes to the Arizona Diamondbacks. Carlos Santana ends up in the Cleveland Guardians spot. Christian Walker solves the position there in Houston, which had been a black hole there for years. Now, as far as the deal for the New York Mets, this is a home run signing for the Mets. The biggest reason why is, yes, you brought in Juan Soto, but where's the protection behind him? I thought Soto would be a nice improvement for this offense. I thought they would be marginally better. Soto being a better player than Alonso would certainly improve the overall effectiveness of this lineup. But you'd much rather have Alonso and add Juan Soto to it, and then you're a significantly better team. Now, I still have my questions about the rotation. Will they add another number one during spring training or during the first couple of months of the season or right before the deadline? Because that's the one hole I still see on this roster is they need a true number one along with Kodai Senga at the top. I think Manaea can hold things down as a great high-end number two, but I would like to see them get another number one, especially if you're going to compete against the likes of the Philadelphia Phillies and their rotation. And then, of course, to me, the greatest rotation in Major League Baseball right now, when healthy, big asterisk there, the Los Angeles Dodgers. Welcome in, everybody. Appreciate you guys joining us this evening. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe if you haven't already. Welcome in Holly, Rafe, Hank, Vinny, Jonathan, B. Skrills, Nando, Heel, Cowboys Nation, Cruz, Sean, Locksmart, welcome back. Got a bunch of you guys in our chat. Sox fan, welcome back as well. Let's go ahead and go through these comments really quick. Sorry, Rafe. Looks like you missed it. Holly got number 1 today. Pete wanted to be a Dodger. I don't think so, Hank, but we appreciate you joining us. Vinny, welcome back. Pete Alonso does finally get done. We expect it to be the Mets early on in the offseason. There was some hesitation, even for me, as far as them being still in it once they made the decision for Jesse Winker, basically saying, we're out. And then, obviously, it sounded like it was a lot more posturing. Scott Boras called him out on it. Round and around they went. And now, finally, he goes back to the New York Mets. And he gets a good deal. Now, the 2-year deal isn't going to excite a lot of fans out there as far as, hey, we got a better of him. Pete Alonso didn't do great in free agency. He's still got $30 million and a player option. The use of that player option is if you have a bad platform year, then you can obviously have that $24 million cushion to fall back on. But ideally, Pete Alonso and that New York Mets team will have a great year. His offense will certainly surge with having Juan Soto in that lineup. You'll see a couple more pitches to hit. But we'll see what this lineup ultimately does during the season. But the season will be judged for Pete Alonso at the plate. More at the plate than anywhere else than most of the other free agents that we'll see next year. Whereas they'll be compared to the glove. We know where the limitations are for Pete Alonso. We know he's not a great contact hitter. We know he hits into double plays. We know he's not a great defender. You know what the one thing is that we do know he has? We know he has that power and that he can translate it into a game and not just during batting practice. So if he has a great year at the plate with that power, he should do very well in free agency next year. Very well could be another $30 million contract per season. Could be anything there. But getting that $30 million deal in that first year, I think is exactly what he was looking for. And I think the reason why he chose the 2-year deal versus the 3-year, I'm sure that first year it sounds like what the first year was in that 3-year contract was a lower average annual value. Tells me that Alonso has his sights set on taking that opt-out next year, which is good for the Mets because that all along they were looking to avoid a long-term commitment with Pete Alonso. They may very well pursue Vladimir Guerrero Jr. in the offseason. Jonathan, it's about time Pete's heart was always going to go back to the Mets. He will have a monster year behind Soto. 35 home runs was a bad year for him. Think about that. Couldn't agree more. I'm expecting probably 40, 45 home runs from Alonso. And that offense should be so much better having Soto in there with Juan Soto as opposed to just having Juan Soto instead of Alonso. So, much better team overall with the addition of Pete Alonso to that lineup. Rafe, Bregman next, and I would rather see him a Cub or Tiger than Astro, but I'm not going to rule out Astros until he signs with someone else. Couldn't have said it better myself. I do think the Cubs are the favorite there. John Heyman echoes those statements in his live that he had on Bleacher Report today. I think the Cubs just need to continue to go all in on 2025. And sad news once again for the Blue Jays that miss out on another top-flight free agent that they were trying to bring in. What does this mean for Vladimir Guerrero Jr.? Do they, are they still able to re-sign him? Does he still want to play third base that badly that they need to bring in another third baseman? A short-term option like an Anthony Rizzo? I don't think so. I think Vladdy's going to be your first baseman next year. And ultimately, with it being this close to the start of spring training, I just don't think that extension's going to get done. Maybe we'll be surprised. I would love to be surprised. Let me say that first for all of you Toronto Blue Jays fans. I would love to be wrong. But I think we're going to see him head to free agency next year and test the market and see how high above $400 million he can make that number go. I think he's going to do great. Let's see here. Beast Grill's good. Overpay, I would not say an overpay. It's a 2-year deal. Any 2-year deal to me, if it's this short on a player of his caliber, is not an overpay. Now, if you had paid him, say, I don't know, $200 million, an absolutely ridiculous number that isn't possible, sure. But within the realm of reason, $30 million for 1 year of Pete Alonso is well within what you might expect. Now, for it to be a 2-year deal, that's still a short-term deal, and you're expecting him to perform in at least one of those 2 years. But at least you're expecting him to have a good platform year and head to free agency next year. Not an overpay as far as I'm concerned. Heel, well, the Mets are ready for the season and take forever. I don't know what was going to happen before Joe Gator returns for Joe Gatto returns to Impractical Jokers, or Pete signs somewhere. Pete gets done first. So I will say for Alonso, though, this lineup is a lot better with him in it. As far as some of the other things that we might have been waiting for this offseason, the Mets like to get things done early in the offseason. We saw that last year with Edwin Diaz and others, and the year before that. Very rarely do they act late in free agency unless there's an opportunity. One of those opportunities was Carlos Correa. Ultimately, the medicals came back negative. They scrapped those deals. Now they get the deal done with Pete Alonso. So if you track the track record anyway of the New York Mets, they act early in free agency on their own guys, trying to attack a few specific needs, and then late in free agency they try to go after one or two different opportunities. So kind of keep that in mind for next year's offseason to kind of see how the offseason really goes for them. If they're going to go after Vlad Guerrero Jr., they're going to push hard in the beginning, see if they can get that one done like they did with some of their own free agents the last couple of years. Even Juan Soto got done at the winter meetings. That huge contract, $765 million, 15 years, all the other additives that are in that deal, the suite, etc. That took a long time to hammer out. They got it done during the winter meetings. Now, we'll see what next year holds, but I would expect them to be fully in there for Kyle Tucker and for Vlad Jr. B. Skrills, I along that the Mets should... You thought all along that the Mets should bring back Alonso. I agree. Boris wins again. Yes, he does. Cruz knew Alonso would be back with the Mets. I think we all did earlier in the offseason. But I would think we all had a fair amount of skepticism after they continued to lowball him and all the consternation going back and forth between Cohen, Alonso, and Boris there. Sean, how close is Bregman to signing? Pretty much the same thing that we've been saying for the past, 5 days. That his market is very crystal clear right now. We know where the teams are that have money. The one thing that might have changed with this Alonso signing is the energy from the Toronto Blue Jays. Once again, they miss another free agent that they've been chasing. They miss on Flaherty, they miss on Soto, they miss on Judge, and on and on and on that list goes. If you're looking for some more long-term stability in that lineup, bringing in Bregman on a long-term deal would be exactly what the doctor ordered. However, it seems like Bregman is unhappy or at least doesn't want to play in a certain spot that is offering him a deal. Might be that the Toronto Blue Jays are that team. That is the speculation that's out there. If Bregman really doesn't want to play in Toronto that badly, why bid against yourself? Why increase that price just to play in Toronto? If you have the best offer on the table, take the best offer on the table, Alex Bregman. If you're not interested in playing here, just tell us and we'll move on. That's what I'd be saying if I'm in Toronto right now. I think they'll miss on Bregman here. I think they're going to miss on getting the extension done with Vladdy. And then we're going to have to see the entire season be dealt with around that Vlad Jr. Extension, Vlad Jr. trade discussion, Vlad Jr.'s free agency. It's going to be nonstop around Major League Baseball this season. So be prepared, Toronto. Sounds like it could be a very long season ahead, even if you have success this year. Let's see here. Rafe, Vladdy, and Tucker on the Mets next year is going to hit like... I'll put it this way. They have a chance to bring in Vladdy and have Pete Alonso if he has a truly great year, or if Alonso has a bad year, they put Alonso at DH for a year and then Vladdy's still there. I don't think this contract for Pete Alonso rules them out of either one of them. And with Steve Cohen, this contract now pushes them over the Steve Cohen tax for the first time since he's been there. Finally, the reason the tax was implemented was for owners like this who have endless pocketbooks. And finally, Steve Cohen, the guy that this rule is essentially named after, or at least, how do I put this, in common tongue anyway, is how this rule was being described as the Cohen tax, is if you go over that threshold. Well, the Dodgers are the team that absolutely blew past it. They're going to go over $400 million. This is the first time the Mets have done so. Heel plot twist, Bregman signs back with the Astros in a few minutes. That would be interesting. But again, I think their offer 6 years for 156 would be a little bit surprising here. But Boris does win again. Nando, Mets still have two relievers as part of their starting rotation. I don't necessarily think so. As far as that rotation goes, I like what they've built up there. I still think they need another number one. I think Holmes is the one guy you're referencing there as far as a reliever in that rotation. But I think they have enough depth in that rotation and in the long relief roles in that bullpen that they'll be able to have a very solid rotation either way. The question is it good enough for the postseason? And that's where I have my doubts. Senga at the top, of course, is a great starting pitcher, but you worry about his health. Manaea, to me, really developed last year, changed his arm slot, and I think he's going to have an even better year this year as he continues to develop the new style of pitching that he found last year with the Mets. Quintana found a good way to pitch last year as well. He's still out there on the free agent market. Do I think he would be what this rotation needs? No. I don't think he has the upward trajectory of a number one in somebody's rotation. I think they still need to add a number one. They've been connected to Dylan Cease. I saw some rumors today connecting them to Michael King. So hopefully they'll add a number one at some point this offseason or during the first few months of the season before the trading deadline. So kind of keep that in mind. While the Mets certainly have a better lineup than a lot of teams in the NL, I think they need to upgrade that rotation to be a serious threat, at least, to the Los Angeles Dodgers. Jonathan Boris lost. He tried to bully Stearns and failed. I don't know about that. I think he still got the contract as far as the average annual value that he was looking for. Didn't necessarily get the length. And that, if he wanted to go back to the Mets all along, we knew the Mets were never going to give him the league. Ever. That just wasn't in the cards. So I think this whole thing was about getting that AAV up. If you remember, about Monday last week, we were discussing them being at a 3-year deal worth $62 million. That's not enough to get it done. That's what, $20-ish million per season? Then they upped it to 3 for 66, and then 3 for 70. None of those contracts are in the ballpark of what Alonso just signed for. Now look at what we were expecting the contract to ultimately balloon to. I told you guys all towards the end of last week and the beginning of this week that expect Alonso to have a contract offer on the table from the Mets in the neighborhood of 3 years for $80 to $85 million. Well, Alonso wants 3 for 100. I didn't think it would get quite that high. And boom, that's exactly where the offer came in at from the Mets. Alonso, meanwhile, said, nah, I'd rather have that higher AAV, and took the shorter-term deal out of the 2 that were on the table from the Mets and got that $30 million in AAV anyway, resetting the market for first baseman once again. And if he has a great year, he's betting on himself, don't get me wrong. He is betting on himself a little bit here. With Vlad Jr. coming up, Boris is going to be very happy with that AAV number for Alonso. 27 mil a year, life must be nice. Well, essentially it's $30 million for the first year, but if things go horribly and he decides to accept the player option for 24, it will be 27 total, essentially. Let's see here, try to catch up on a few of these comments. I apologize if I missed your comment. My screen is jumping on me. B. Skrills, Dodgers, Mets, Cubs, Phillies, Padres. Trying to follow your conversation there as my screen jumps again. Welcome in, Coffee Time. John, welcome in. Dot Ghost, appreciate you joining us once again. Man, there's a lot of comments. Let me see. I guess you're mentioning the rotations there, or at least the favorites in the National League there, B. Skrills. Cowboys Nation failed. He reset the AAV again. That's kind of my thoughts there. Sox fan, 30 mil is a big overpay for a 230 hitter. Pete Alonso's never been about the average hitter. He's never been about contact rate. If you guys have been paying attention to this channel, you guys would have noticed we never said Pete Alonso was a great average hitter. We never said he avoided the double play. We never said he was a burner on the base paths or great defensively. The one asset he did bring, power. Power and more power. And so Pete Alonso, even in a down year last year, even by his own admission, he still hits 35 home runs. Now with Juan Soto being there, I'd imagine he's going to see a few more pitches to hit. I'd expect those numbers to go up offensively as far as at least the home run count. Now his average may go up a little, it may go down a little, but he's there to hit home runs, to drive in runs, to drive the offense, to win a game 2-1 as opposed to 1-0. He's that difference maker with one swing of the bat. That's why you bring in Pete Alonso. So $30 million is not a big overpay, especially when you look at the first base market with Freddie Freeman and other first basemen making around that number. Pete Alonso, to me, is a borderline top 7, top 8 first baseman, and he was going to get a very nice contract, and I think he did that here. He still preserves his free agency for next year. If he does really well this year, he can get a bigger deal next year, but I don't think it's ridiculous either way. I think that as far as a home run hitter, he's been able to figure out how to hit high enough average to still be productive, whereas a guy like Joey Gallo, who's all power, doesn't exactly translate on the field, and doesn't hit for average and strikes out even worse, was never able to figure it out. That's the difference between a power hitter that can translate it to success on the field versus a power hitter who just never does. And so that's kind of why Pete Alonso still does very well here this offseason. I like the deal for both sides. Mets get the short-term deal they were looking for and still preserve their flexibility to go after Vladdy, to be able to bring back Pete Alonso next year possibly, or go after Kyle Tucker or whoever else they want to add in that starting rotation next year. Meanwhile, Pete Alonso gets the AAV that he was looking for. Boris gets exactly the AAV that he was looking for as well. Maybe they wanted to do a little bit better. I'm sure they wanted to get the long-term guaranteed contract. But I still think it's a good deal all the way around. And we knew it was going to be a somewhat team-friendly deal. I didn't think they were going to get to that 3 years, $100 million deal. Ultimately, he gets the $30 million in the first year, and I think it's going to function as a one-year, $30 million contract by the time we get to free agency next year. But it does make sense for them. I will agree with you there, Cowboys Nation. Jonathan, it's a 2-year with an opt-out. Clearly, the Mets are waiting to see if Vladdy enters free agency. Pete can opt out after this year and re-enter free agency. It is kind of a bet on that as well. Say, surprising things happen and Vladdy figures out the deal with the Blue Jays, signs that extension. Well, then Pete Alonso is going to be at the top of the market once again for first baseman. And if he has a better year, say he hits 45 home runs, still hits around 230, 240. He's going to do very well in free agency next year. So be prepared for that one. For those of you who think the $30 million is an overpay, just wait until next year if that scenario that I just laid out happens. Welcome in, Verlis. Heel, I think you get the massive money bag if you're very athletic. Yes, if you're a power hitter, you still get paid, but everyone is looking for the next five-tool superstar. No argument here, Heel. I think everybody's looking for that player, but those players are fewer and farther between. That doesn't mean that Alonso still doesn't have value. Now, the power, like I said, is the one thing that GMs have always historically paid for, and they continue to pay for. They just don't give the long-term contracts for that like they used to for an Albert Pujols or a Prince Fielder type of hitter. If this was still those type of days, then we'd be looking at, say, a 7 or 8 year contract for Pete Alonso. That's not the case anymore. First base DHs don't usually get paid, and this is one of the few first basemen who's able to use that one skill that he has, hitting for power, translate it onto the field unlike any other first baseman that I've mentioned, even better than Freddie Freeman. He does that one skill better. Now, is Freddie Freeman a better first baseman? Without question. Better hitter for average? Without question. Double plays? Without question. Defensively? Without question. Base running? Without question. What's the one area Pete Alonso does a little bit better? That's power. And having that power, being able to hit not getting your A swing off and still being able to drive it out the other way. Pete Alonso has that ability, and that's why he is getting paid. Coffee time. Welcome from Rowlett. Appreciate you joining us. Love your channel. Thank you. Really appreciate you guys. Covering a lot of the basketball NBA trade deadline today and tomorrow. We'll have our live tomorrow throughout the morning and into the late afternoon covering the NBA trade deadline. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe for that one as well. If you're new here, subscribe. Follow us on X at Upside Ascend and on Facebook, Upside Sports Network. Appreciate those of you who have subscribed today. We've gained like 15 subscribers today. Been really nice, and thank you for hitting those hearts in the chat. I really do appreciate it. Vlad will get the bag next season from the Mets. I think he'll get the bag. The question is from what team? Welcome in, Doc Ghost. B. Skrills, I got the Mets winning the NL East. I think that's where I've got my prediction as well. I think the Braves are still going to be good. The Phillies are going to be good, but it's going to count a lot on bounce-back years from Castellanos, but most importantly, a bounce-back year from Trey Turner. I think as Trey Turner goes is how the Phillies season is going to go. That's their one thing they really need to get right. Hitting 278 is not what they expected out of him. They need more speed. They need higher average. They need the home run guy. They need the guy from the World Baseball Classic. They need the guy from the Dodgers, and they didn't get that last year. So that's where the improvement's going to come from the Phillies. Hank, Dodgers are like WWE and pro wrestling, just scooping up all the talent. They are, but there are several teams that are still getting their own players as well. Going to be a lockout next year. I do think we are headed for one. A work stoppage. I think there's too many issues that they need to resolve. Locksmart, wow, if Alonso can get that, Bregman sure is more valuable. No question, defensively, more versatile. I think he has a longer track record of success. I think he's able to do more things on the baseball field. Only question is his power a product of the Crawford boxes there in Houston, or does he have enough power to be able to hit in other ballparks? And I think that is part of the question that will be answered next season. Might be why he takes an opt-out after the first year. He does have contracts on the table from both Toronto and Chicago of 6 years in length. I'm sure there are other contracts out there as well, different varieties of deals from those clubs, but with opt-outs after the first year. John, will the Yankees trade Stroman? I would definitely expect so. As far as when, I would have already traded him by now. I would have found a suitor, but it sounds like the Marlins are figuring out how they want to structure their rotation and their bullpen right now. They might finally be coming to a decision what they want to do financially, and so they might be able to take that contract off your books. So we're finally seeing some movement, at least from the Marlins, at least discussing those types of things. So maybe that will lead to a trade there for Marcus Stroman. As far as to who, I think he will go to the Marlins. As far as the Bregman, I think for the Cubs. Stroman's a head case. That's kind of strong for me. I still think he's a good pitcher. Is he as good as he once was? No. Is he more emotional than some other pitchers? You're darn right he is. It's a tough sell. Okay. Mavericks. Yeah, it's kind of the one thing I'm waiting for here as well. Any chance the Rangers go after Cease or King? I'm sure they've discussed it internally. Maybe that's something they'll discuss in the offseason next year because I think they will add another starting pitcher. Maybe it could be Cease. Maybe it could be King. Yes, it is better than the $61 million deal for Jimmy Butler. My goodness, that's a bad contract extension after trading all those pieces for him as well. Jonathan, Vladdy seen as a massive contract. Soto signed. Vladdy will get $400 million easy. Absolutely agree on that one as well. Bregman gonna retire? No, he's not. Hank, I wouldn't mind King as a reliever. King is going to be a starting pitcher. He's proved himself as a starting pitcher. He will not be a relief pitcher. Let's go ahead. I'm just going to check and see if there's any other news real quick. Because you guys have me wondering. Mets offered Alonso a 3-year, $71 million deal, which had a higher first-year value. Interesting. Maybe they didn't have an opt-out after the first year? Maybe. Then we have a conflicting report that says the higher deal was with the shorter term deal. That's what I thought it was. Okay. I think Feinstein's just got that one wrong. I think Heyman has the right information that the first year was more valuable. That's why he took the short-term deal for 2 years as opposed to 3. Otherwise, if there was an opt-out after the first year in the 3-year deal anyway, why wouldn't he take the more guaranteed money up front anyway? So that makes more sense. All right. Let me just check one other thing, see if anything else is going on before I continue down the comment list here. Another trade. New York Knicks are trading Jericho Sims to the Milwaukee Bucks in exchange for guard Delon Wright. Second trade of the day there. Very interesting. Doesn't look like anything else is going on besides that small deal, but the Knicks do indeed move on from Jericho Sims. More defensive guard help there for the Knicks. Anyway, back to the Alonso story. Cruz, Mets lineup looks better, but starters have 2 relievers as Holmes and Peterson. I think Peterson's going to be a good starter. I think he has the track record to be one. Holmes is the bigger question for me. Cowboys Nation, Mets or Yankees? Ooh, that's a good question now with with Alonso back in there. I'd say the Yankees have the better rotation. Bullpen, I lean Mets. The Yankees could do a little bit better in that bullpen though if they add another piece. But I like the Mets bullpen right now. And then as far as the lineup, that's a tough one for me because you lose Soto. You have 2 aircraft carriers in Lindor and Soto in that lineup, and now some good help there in Alonso there. I'll give the edge just by a nose to the Mets for their lineup because you have 2 aircraft carriers. Meanwhile, for the Yankees, you have Aaron Judge, of course, as your big aircraft carrier, and then you bring in a lot of really good players, kind of on that Alonso level for me, Bellinger, etc. But you don't have that second aircraft carrier. That's kind of the difference for me. So I would lean just a hair to the Mets. Chicago Bears, welcome in. Appreciate you joining us. Do you think the Cubs still have a shot at Bregman? They're still the favorite for me. I think he goes to Chicago. That's my pick, and I'm sticking to it. If you guys want to check out our video from a couple of days ago, you can check out our full breakdown of both the Alonso market and for the Alex Bregman market. Pretty much nailed this market right on the head. I thought it would be a 3-year deal at around $85 million. Ultimately, that 3-year deal came in a little short, but the AAV is about right here. 2 years, $54 million is about what we were expecting, as we knew that the 3-year deal for 62 was way too low. 3-year deal for 66, still too low. 3 for 70, still not going to cut it. And then they upped it again, it looks like by a little bit here to 71, but ultimately Alonso takes a shorter-term deal to get that higher average annual value for that first year. Bregman seems most likely with the Cubs. I would agree there, Rafe. Yankees have an amazing rotation and bullpen, plus depth pieces. I like the Yankees bullpen. I like Weaver in that bullpen quite a bit. I have my questions about Devin Williams as a closer. Kind of blew up a little bit in the postseason for me. We'll have to see how he performs this year. That's why I kind of prefer Diaz. He has his ups and downs, don't get me wrong. But I think there's flexibility there with the Mets to still address needs in that bullpen if necessary. And as currently constructed, I'd rather have Diaz closing a game than Williams, at least for me. That might not be how most people see it, but that's how I would go about it. I still like Devin Williams. I think he has a higher ceiling. I just like the track record of Diaz just a little more. Let's see here. Try to catch up on a few of these. I'm confused as to why he has not signed yet. I think we all know where the market is now. Now with Alonso off the board, I think it's going to crystallize things with Toronto as far as what's the best and last offer they can make. Detroit, after they get Flaherty done, what's the best and last offer they could make. And we know where the Cubs are at. So I think we're going to see a decision fairly soon. But I've been saying that for the better part of a week because we know all these things already. But with Alonso going off the board, there's less uncertainty there with Toronto now. I don't know what's going on. Mets are not the best in the NL. Dodgers are a masterclass. They are. Bregman is going to go back to the Astros. I don't think so. I think he would have already if he was willing to accept that 6-year, 156 offer. The only way I think he goes back to Houston if they change something in that deal, offer him a 7th year, that would balloon that offer up to a little bit over Willie Adames. Otherwise, I don't think he's going back to Houston at that 6-year offer, and it doesn't sound like they're budging off of that deal. Yankees are the best in the AL, at least on paper to me. Pacoda rankings have that one as well. You would prefer the Cubs. That's kind of my fit as well. Cole and Fried, Carlos and Heel haven't proven to be consistent. Carlos looks better of late last season, but I don't know. He's not the same Carlos in my opinion. No argument there on Rodon, but for me, he's the 4th starting pitcher in that rotation. Luis Heel does have some inconsistencies as a young player, but we definitely saw enough out of him last year that I like him better than pretty much everybody outside of Manaya and Senga for that Mets rotation. For the Yankees, you always have Garrett Cole at the top. I love Max Fried, and that's why I give the edge for the rotation, at least, to the Yankees. Sox fan for life. Cubs or Tigers for Bregman? I'm picking Cubs. You're excited for the Yankees. Should be an interesting year. Absolutely. I think they'll be great for the regular season. The season starts for the Yankees for me once we get to October. How do they perform? How do they rise to the occasion? Soto really rose to the occasion. Was their best player in the postseason. Can they expect the pieces that they brought in to rise and meet the moment as well? Remains to be seen, and we won't know until we get to October. Heel, I'm going to keep it real for the Mets. Should trade for Vladdy in the offseason regardless and go all in and hopefully extend him. You're saying that the Mets should go for him right now? I don't think that's going to happen. I think the Blue Jays are all in on 2025 as well to try to win. I don't think you could pry him out of there even if you made a great offer. I think the Mets or the Blue Jays are looking to try to get that extension done even right now. Now, once you get to the trade deadline, all bets are off. If things are clear that he's going to sign elsewhere in free agency, the season's just gone so bad, he's talking badly about the team, talking badly about the front office, then he'll go elsewhere. I don't think Vladdy will do that, though, and so it's going to be a talking point all season long if they don't get that extension done. But the Mets are not going to get him before the season. Wait until the trade deadline, then talk to me, then we'll see what happens there. Thanks, Foreman. Schmidt, great number 5. I would agree there. I wouldn't say a great number 5. I would say a very good number 5 starting pitcher, but they do have some pretty good depth there. What's so special about Vlad Jr.? Power, on base, can play a little bit of third base as well, a little bit better defensively at first base. He's one of the better offensive pieces in the game right now. OPS plus, a lot better than what was expected the last couple of years from him, and still looks like a very good, productive player. Now, the question is, do people view him as more of the Albert Pujols, Prince Fielder type, or are they going to view him more as a player who's going to hold up for longevity and see how big that contract ultimately gets? Those are the questions there. You're killing me. Let's see. Yankees bullpen is a beast. Williams, Weaver, Cruz. I really like Weaver. I think he's your best reliever in that bullpen, but I would love to have seen them add another 8th inning option for me. For instance, say the Yankees get in David Robertson, then I would give them the edge. If the Mets were to get David Robertson, I certainly would give the Mets the edge. But I just like what the Mets have done. A.J. Minter, underrated signing, been one of the best 10 relievers in the game the last 2 years. People don't count that one as a big addition for them, but I really like that get for them, and I think they still have the flexibility of Steve Cohen's pocketbook to add whatever they need. Until they trade Marcus Stroman, the Yankees don't have that flexibility. So that's why I give the edge right now and currently to the New York Mets, but that could change once they trade away Stroman and add somebody else to that bullpen. Power slugger, solid glove, would agree there. Try to catch up on some of these comments here. Apologize if I missed. There's so many of them coming in. Got a lot of people in our chat. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe if you haven't done so as well. A lot of comments here. I'm already halfway through the chat. Wow. There's a lot of people in our chat. Okay, there we go. Thank you. Let's talk Andrus in the Hall of Fame, or to the Rangers Hall of Fame. Absolutely. Good honor for Elvis Andrus. I told you we'd mention it at least in our live. Happy for Elvis. He's actually going to be on the Rangers broadcast this year for Victory Plus. He'll be a studio analyst, kind of taking over for Mark McLemore. I really like McLemore's analysis, so that's one thing I will miss. I think budgets just kind of restrict them to keeping that studio small. And, hopefully Elvis will be good, because if not, we're going to miss out on having Mac every day. So hopefully he's good. He's always going to be entertaining, I think. The question is the analysis going to work? That's my question there. As far as the Hall of Fame, I mean, the Rangers, he's probably one of the best Rangers shortstops in their history. Very few have reached the heights of what Elvis did, and he was the shortstop on the team that made it to the first World Series in team history. He was one of the key cogs that actually caused that to happen. The trade that brought him to Texas as well was one of the big reasons why the Rangers were able to get as far as they were, trading Mark Teixeira to bring in Elvis Andrus, Neftali Feliz, Matt Harrison, and who was the fourth piece of that one? Jared Saltz and Lamacchia in exchange for Mark Teixeira and Ron Mayhay. So one of the greatest trades we've seen in Major League Baseball. That trade set up the Rangers for success for about a decade, and now we're in that next window of success for the Rangers where they finally won a World Series. So congratulations to Elvis getting in, quite an honor, and just looking forward to his analysis, seeing if he can hold up to what I've come to expect from Mark McLemore. I know it's kind of spite, but are you wrong? I don't know about that one. Let's see here. Give us some news. We don't know what's holding up the Bregman deal. Not really sure. I think the market is pretty clear as far as where things stand. For me, it sounds like Bregman is just hoping for a better long-term offer from a city he wants to play in. I'm sure he's got an offer from a city he doesn't want to play in that's to his liking, but he wants to up those other offers as well. Yankee fan since the 80s, brother. Cowboys, Sugars. Elvis, of course. Okay. Bregman wants more money. I would agree there. Always a Yankee hater for rent-free head. We go O's. All right. Bregman to the Cubs. I think that's where I agree he will go. Let's see. It's cool. We like different teams and different sports and all good. Joey Gallo slander won't be tolerated. I love Joey Gallo as much as the next guy. I would love for the Rangers to sign him as a depth signing this offseason, but I just don't see it happening. I think it'd be a good option to have. Bring him in on a minor league deal, and if he hits really well in spring training, maybe he breaks camp with you if you have an injury. But if he doesn't, then of course that might be the end of the line for Joey Gallo's career. But his best years were in Texas. Maybe he'll come back and surprise us all. Heel, if Bregman signs somewhere, who will be the Astros fallback option? Well, we just saw them sign their fallback option. Ben Gamel is back with the Houston Astros. 1 year, $1.2 million deal. $200,000 in signing bonus and $1 million guarantee if he makes the roster out of spring training. So good get, I think, for the Astros, because again, they're looking at a shoestring budget. They do not want to go over the threshold anyway, and going for Bregman anyway would certainly blow past it. That's the only player they're willing to do that for. So good on them to add at least an outfielder. Is this a difference maker for me? No, it's not. This is just more depth more than anything else, and hopefully you can catch fire with some of these low cost signings that really proved to be a difference maker for you. Got to hope for that if you're an Astros fan. I know, Willard, you're a resident Astros fan. I'm sure you're happy about that one. But you got to hope for some of those pieces in the outfield to have career years, or at least to start to show some development there, especially after trading Kyle Tucker. Let's see here. Will Bregman be back to the Astros? I don't think so. I think he's going to go to the Cubs. If Flaherty keeps it up, Detroit going to be tough in the playoffs? Absolutely. Skubal, Flaherty, Olsen, Job, I think is going to be pretty good as well. But Skubal, Flaherty, and I think if Jackson Jobe can really play as well as we expect him to, one of the top prospects in the game, the Tigers could really be a problem once you get to October. Dodgers beating everyone. I do think they are the favorites on paper, but again, you still have to play the games. I don't know. I've seen super teams fail. They have. The Dodgers' tiers are going to be great when they fall short. That's what you watch for. That's why ratings in Major League Baseball for the Dodgers last year were already through the roof. They were the #1 most watched road team. They're going to be definitely better than that this year when they're considered the favorites to get to and win the World Series. Going to have a David and Goliath thing once you get to October as well. Ratings are going to be very good for the Dodger games. Questions are, for the rest of the league, what are the ratings going to look like? We'll see with a lot of the TV changes that we've seen over the last couple of years as well. You still have to win on the field, absolutely. Alonso K's too much, agree. Judge is way better, no kidding. Nothing is settled. Soto had a career year. For the money, he will drop off. I would agree. Soto did have a career year. Really played well for the Yankees. As far as a drop-off, I don't think it'll be that big. I think Soto is the player that he is. He's very patient at the plate, very good discerning eye, very deliberate with what he does. He has the power. He does get on base. And I think defensively, he'll at least be able to hold up for about at least another 4, 5, 6 years, maybe 7. But that second half of that deal will start to get ugly, like all of those big long-term deals do. Just look at Miggy Cabrera. Just look at Albert Pujols. Not saying that the deal wasn't still a good deal for the Mets to sign. I just agree with all the other contracts that we've seen throughout the history of baseball. Those big contracts for sluggers like this generally don't do well in the back half of the deal, but you're hoping that the first years of the deal ultimately make it worth it by winning a World Series. Those wild card teams are killing in MLB right now. They are. I think there's several teams that are doing very well as far as adding pieces to their lineup, adding pieces to their rotation, taking advantage of the market right now for some of the pieces that are still out there. Rangers, for instance, were not a playoff team last year, have added a couple of minor league guys that I think could be on the Major League roster come the opening day, because I think the Rangers have a glut of middle infielders on their big league roster. I think they'll trade 1 or 2 of those guys before the start of the season for some extra starting pitching or for a bullpen help, and then there'll be an opening for one of those guys. And then, of course, if injury happens, you never know. Tim, welcome back. Your Mets finally did get Pete Alonso signed, 2 years, $54 million. Essentially, it will operate as a 1-year deal, $30 million if things go well for Pete Alonso. But good on him, good on the Mets. Pretty much good contract all the way around. Mets get what they want, short-term deal. Alonso gets what he wants as far as the higher AAV. Same thing with Scott Boras. Now, the one thing that I don't think anybody can say on this deal is that everybody got everything that they wanted. Mets ended up having to give up a little bit more money. Boras didn't get the long-term deal that he was looking for. Same thing for Alonso. So, kind of have to meet in the middle. This contract, I think, is pretty good for all sides, though. Last year, I guess, both number ones made it, but still. Yeah, I mean, wild cards are wild cards. Every now and again, we'll get one that goes that far. Texas won the World Series as a wild card team. Let's see here. He did better when the Yankees were on a roll. My observation with Marcus Stroman. I'll agree with that. Success breeds success. I think that's good. Or I think that's true for a lot of people, though. But we'll see. I still think Stroman needs to be moved off of that roster before they make any big decisions as well. We might have a Subway Series. Would y'all like that? I don't know. I think as far as a Subway Series would go, I think the ratings would be great for Major League Baseball. But I think the Dodgers, at least on paper, are the team there. VPCZX. Yikes. You are not happy. I wonder why. The Blue Jays, once again, do not get their guy. Toronto is a great city, I will say that. But my goodness, they just continue to miss on their top targets. Now, Hank, they do have a first baseman. I'll agree with that one. But Vladdy was wanting to play third base this year. That's why they were looking at Pete Alonso as a good insurance policy, absolutely, if Vladdy left. But Vlad wanted to play third this year. And bringing him in, allowing him to play third base, bringing Alonso in, allowing Vlad to play third base anyway, would have at least made more incentives for Vladdy to sign that extension. I just don't think that's going to happen at this point. So more tumultuous off seasons ahead for the Blue Jays. Rod, welcome in. Appreciate you. We don't need the polar bear. We already have Vladdy. I mean, you already do have him at first base. I think he would have been more of a luxury item, so I will agree on that one. But any type of addition to this team, any long-term addition to this team is a welcome one to the Blue Jays. Too much instability in that team, and when you have too much instability, why would I sign a long-term deal there if I'm Vlad Guerrero Jr.? Why would I sign a long-term deal there if I'm Juan Soto? Why would I sign a long-term deal there with all these other free agents when you don't have your own guys locked up long-term? Yes, I want there to be a spot for me to come and join the team, but I don't want to be the only one left standing after the season when you fire the manager, when Vladdy leaves in free agency, when Bo Bichette leaves in free agency. I don't want it just to be me and Anthony Santander. But good on them for at least getting Santander, bringing in Max Scherzer, although that's a 1-year deal. I would have preferred Jack Flaherty, but ultimately they don't. Santander was a good get for them, I will say that one. Left field is open for Looper Fido to lose. I would agree. Nice get for them anyway there in Toronto. The Kikuchi deal was really lopsided anyway for the Blue Jays, and ultimately they're going to have to get some production out of him to actually prove that it was lopsided for them. Kikuchi played well for the Astros, though, I will say that. You're okay. I'm okay to have national and city pride, no worries. Okay. Wagner can play DH. Wow, as my screen jumps again. We traded for Wagner and Looper Fido for a reason. I mean, going young, I don't think is the answer this season for the Blue Jays if they're trying to win now. If they're trying to win now, They need to be bringing in veterans. That's kind of the bigger thing there. If they're going to go with the youth movement, then why make the trade for Jimenez? Why bring in Miles Straw? Why pursue all these guys, when it's not working out? Now, the thing for Straw was it was trying to bring in Roki Sasaki. That's a little bit more understandable. But you're trading a young asset with positive value in Horowitz in exchange for an asset that's got a lot of money attached to him for years and is seen as a negative asset in Chris Jimenez. That trade did not make sense from top to bottom to me. You just can't be the Dodgers. I don't think anybody but the Dodgers can be the Dodgers, my friend. No one's heard of those two. Lou Perfino was the Astros prospect. I do remember that one. He was actually on the Astros team last year. He's kind of a utility player more for the Astros. Didn't see him much for the Blue Jays because I didn't watch much Blue Jays in the second half last year. Let's see here. I was an Athletics fan before, and I just can't see the Blue Jays be like the Athletics. You're not going to go that far down the hill. I mean, the A's are a little bit better this year, but the Blue Jays, I think your more realistic comp is the most recent iteration of the San Francisco Giants under Farhan Zaidi, having that rough 5-year stretch where you miss on all these free agents. Good news is this is probably year 2 of you missing on top light free agents. So hopefully you only have 3 years of rough seas ahead. I will say that. You're not a Blue Jays fan, then you don't know him. Well, Lou Perfino was a part of that trade anyway. I do remember that one. The East is insane. You're going to be very competitive. Absolutely. Every team in that division should be pretty good. Cowboys Nation, wait a minute. How were you an A's fan, but now a Jays fan? My guess would probably be Josh Donaldson. Hank, we at least have the A's. Envision the Mariners collapse, so we have a good situation. You have a tough one, true. The AL West is a lot easier to get through. Mike, welcome in. If Bregman does go to the Cubs and they decide to keep Horner, wouldn't that to give them one of the best infields in the bigs? Bregman, Swanson, Horner, Shaw, and Bush. I would agree there defensively. Now, as far as offense, Horner, anyway, would have to prove himself a little bit more to me. He has a good offensive profile. Bush had a good year offensively last year, but if you look at his numbers, his underlying numbers, we're due for some regression from that bat from Bush. That's why I think they should sign at least somebody to platoon with him like an Anthony Rizzo there. But no argument, that infield would be pretty good defensively. VPCZX, Cowboys Nation, I like to said before, but I cannot support a team that plays in a city that drives people to... Yikes. Let's try to keep those comments out of the chat anyway. I get your point anyway, but they kind of censor us when we say things like that in the chat. So try to keep those types of comments out of there if you don't mind. VPCZX, appreciate you though. Place is just dark. My reasoning for not supporting them. Heel, please keep Joey Gallo far away from the Rangers team. Joey Gallo sucks so bad. Good human though. That's why I'm not signing him to a major league deal. I'm saying as a minor league invite. And if you get to spring training and Joey Gallo hits, say, 15 home runs in 10 spring training games, yeah, he's kind of earned a spot on the major league roster. But if what happens, like what we expect to happen, where he strikes out 10 times out of 12 at-bats, then he's one of the first cuts on the spring training roster there. JG, welcome in. Gamble played good for the Astros, then got injured. I would agree there. Again, that's why I like the signing, but they need better players overall, period. They just need some good outfielders. Let's see here. As actually played good baseball second half, and they're just in flux. Can't call them contenders, but wait until things are settled. They have a good young talent pool. They do. Sean, will Bregman be signing since Alonso is off the board? I keep saying it's any minute now. It's clear as day as far as what this market really is for him. I get it. Where Bregman's at, but maybe this signing here for Alonso makes things a little clearer there with Toronto. Maybe it ups their offer just a little bit more and makes it a little bit more palatable for Bregman to sign the deal there. Hank, I see Canada kind of chaotic right now. Factor okay. Matters to players, agents. True. I'd say the whole world is chaotic right now, Hank, not just Canada. U.S. is a little chaotic. Everybody's a little chaotic at the moment. Bichette will get traded this offseason, or get traded this season when they are X number of games back at the break. Let's put a number on X. I'll say 10 games. If the Blue Jays are 10 games back at the All-Star break, they will move on from Bo Bichette. And if it looks like they're going to lose Vladdy in free agency, they will move him as well. 49 days to opening day. Absolutely. We are almost there. Pitchers and catchers are reporting. Spring training is right around the corner. Once that starts, we will go day by day. Every single day, we'll take one team and break down their chances this season, what the roster looks like, moves they made, moves they didn't make, trades they made, trades they ultimately didn't take, what their lineup looks like, their rotation, their bullpen, their minor league system, where they rank as a farm system, how the season's going to go for them, where they finish in the division, how the playoffs are going to go, all those kinds of things, that and more we will get into with each team every single day. VPCZX, dual citizen Kazakhstan and Kazakhstan. That's an interesting mix. Spent most of your time in Kazakhstan, but still very patriotic birth nation, and that us Canadians strive to make it very good. Okay, will do. Strive for the aggressive chats. No, you're good, my friend. Just that one word is what really gets censored whenever we go through these things. Don't worry about it, VPCZX. I got you. I know it's a rough off season for the Blue Jays fans. I know Mark usually is in our chat. I haven't seen him in our chat yet, anyway, but. I know it's a tough off season for a lot of the Blue Jays faithful out there. I know we have like 4 or 5 of them usually in our chat every single day. It's a tough time, and I think you're going to have tough times ahead. It's going to be a while, I think, until you're truly competitive if this season doesn't go the way that they hope. If they don't get that extension done with Vladdy, which I don't think they will, if they don't sign him in free agency next year, it could be some dark days ahead for you, my friend. And hoping for the best. I was a Blue Jays fan, except for when, of course, they were having the Jose Bautista bat flip era. Outside of that, I love Vernon Wells. Was Alex Rios there for a minute as well? I'm thinking, wasn't he the White Sox though? I can't remember, but I remember him with the Blue Jays for a minute as well. But Roy Halladay, David Wells era there. Those were the teams that I could really enjoy as a Blue Jays fan back then. Carlos Delgado, probably be one of my favorite all-time Blue Jays. Really loved him as a first baseman. I remember when he hit free agency, that was one of the first times I ever really covered MLB free agency and went through the numbers and pulled all the almanacs out and looked at everything. Covered his free agency relentlessly. Back when MLB didn't really have a great way of covering the hot stove season, and they had this one spreadsheet that they would use, and every day I was sorting through it, and he was one of my favorite targets for the Rangers to go after back then. So. Just kind of a shout out to Carlos Delgado more than anything else. I remember him quite well from the Blue Jays days. Welcome in, Joe. Appreciate you. We need Wemco or H. Wemco again. Alrighty. Let me go ahead and just update our page here. Let me flip the screen around. Going to update our basketball feed just to see if anything else is going there. It is trade deadline day tomorrow. A lot of activity in the NBA, as you might expect. Let's head over to our other list for baseball, see if anything is going tonight. Mets have had a hell of a winter. Couldn't agree more there, Mr. Heyman. Let's see here. Obviously, huge mistake turning down $158 million. No kidding. Pete followed the shorter-term opt-out contract route of Snell, Chapman, Correa, Bellinger, Snell. Chapman and Correa wound up getting scoring big the next winter. That's the thought process there for Alonso, but here's the difference. He's a first baseman. All the others are not. So while he might get a long-term deal next year, it's going to be nowhere near the level of those other guys. So while he's hoping for a better contract, maybe the AAV will be more of what he's looking for. But I think 1 year, $30 million is a really good get for him. This approach did not work out so well for Jordan Montgomery, Cody Bellinger in 24. So we'll see if Alonso has a big year. According to Mark Feinsand, good analysis from him. Sean, does Bregman still sign with the Cubs in your opinion? 100%. My guess does not change. I think that Toronto has had the best offer all along. I think they remain the best offer all along. The only question is, do they up their offer? How much do they up it? And does that matter at all to Alex Bregman? If they offered him, say, $500 million for 1 year, would he go to Toronto? I'm not sure he would or would not. I'm not sure where he wants to play and how much that matters to him. Until we really know that, until his free agency is resolved, I don't think any of us will really know. Cowboys Nation, you need Joe Carter and company to come back. One of the greatest players ever, I will agree there. Let's see here. Just seeing if anything else as far as the headlines there. Let's head over to MLB trade rumors. Anything there? There's the headline there. The 3-year, $71 million offer was declined. That was the 2-year, $54 that was accepted with an opt-out after the first year. $10 million signing bonus and a $30 million first-year salary. Those teams were stacked in the early 90s. Absolutely, Roberto Alomar, Fred McGriff was on some of those teams. They had a good team back then. Wasn't Pedro there for a minute as well? I think he was. Just seeing if there's any other headlines at the moment. Harrison Bader, one other bit of news from today for those of you who are Twins fans. Harrison Bader goes to the Twins. We touched on Ben Gamel as well. Let me pull up the Bader contract. I believe it was a one-year deal, guarantee of $6.25 million. Another 2 in bonuses. The structure of his deal was different, though. They don't seem to have all the structure here. There's an option for 26. I think there was a signing bonus involved, and the base salary was only $2 million, something like that. But either way, low-cost signing here for the Twins gives them some depth in that outfield. I think this does allow them to free up some trade possibilities for them. Willie Castro has some positive value out there. Maybe they find a new home for Byron Buxton as well. So those are kind of some things I'd be watching for from the Twins this year. I think the Twins are going to be in teardown mode at the trade deadline, so don't be surprised about that one. JG, if Bregman leaves, he will have a hard time hitting at Wrigley, thus will drive his value down lower. I think the logical move is to stay with Houston and abuse the Crawford boxes. Now, I will agree that he is seen as a product of the Crawford boxes. Now, offense in general in Wrigley was down last year. Both road and home teams, the offense was down. Wind essentially was blowing a different way all season long, it sounds like. From some of the analysts that I've listened to, I'd expect that to go back to normal this year. It's one of the first down years offensively Wrigley has ever really played like. There's a lot of day games there. So, as far as Bregman goes, I think that would be a good ballpark for him to go to. Is it as good as having the Crawford boxes? No. There's an advantage to having that, obviously. But I'm still saying that Bregman would be a good offensive piece for the Cubs. And in a year where you're all in, beggars can't be choosers. He's the best free agent left on the board. Doesn't cost you anything aside from salary to go ahead and sign him to a deal. And you're going to have Kyle Tucker going to free agency next year, possibly Presley as well. You're going to have to figure out things on the fly here if you want to have a team for the long term after this year. So Bregman is the one guy. If you want him, sign him. If you don't, move on. So we'll see. All right, appreciate you guys joining us. Let me head over to X and just see if anything else is happening before we head out for the evening. I wasn't planning on going quite this long. I wanted to save my voice for the live I'm going to have tomorrow or for any late breaking news this evening. But with the breaking news tonight that Pete Alonso has signed a 2-year deal, $54 million to go back to the Mets, we had to go live for you guys just like we tell you every single night. We will be live here at the Upside. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe. Hit those hearts in the chat. Really do appreciate those that have been flying in here over the last few minutes. So thank you for those. I appreciate that. If you guys think this was a good signing before we sign off for the night, go ahead and put a smiley face in the chat if you think this was a great signing. If you think this was a poor signing for the Mets, give us a thumbs down. Let's take a quick little poll before we head out. If you have any trades that you want us to discuss over the next couple of days, please send them to us via chat or via message on some of our short videos that we've been posting the last couple of days. Trade deadline will be the primary focus during the day tomorrow. If there is a Bregman signing, we will go live for that one as well. So be sure to join us for all of that coverage. Got several hearts in the chat there, so I guess we do have a lot of fans of the signing there for Alonso. I know there are some people who think it's a little bit of an overpay, but for me, I think $30 million for 1 year for Alonso works out for both sides. All three sides, really. Works for Boris because it gets the AAV for a first baseman up there into the range where you're hoping for a Vladdy to have a nice platform. You also get Alonso getting the $30 million he was looking for, and he gets to stay with the Mets, the team he wanted to play for. Short-term deal, though. It doesn't get everything he wanted. And then the Mets get the short-term deal, the exact thing they wanted, but they had to give up a little extra bread to be able to make that one happen. Thank you guys for joining us. Every single one of you guys. Hats off to every single one of you guys for making this so much fun to cover Major League Baseball, to cover the NBA the last couple of days as well. Appreciate all you guys, feedback and everything. But we'll be live with you guys again tomorrow morning for the NBA trade deadline. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe. Follow us on X @UpsideAscend and on Facebook, Upside Sports Network. Y'all have a great evening. We'll see you tomorrow.